The title of her talk today is Learn All the Things, an Interdisciplinary Approach to Educating Rare Book Librarians. So a little bit about Julia. Julia King is a Master of Information student at the University of Toronto iSchool, specializing in library and information science. She is a member of the Book History and Print Culture Collaborative Program and is the 2015 Massey College Printing Fellow. Julia holds a Master's of Arts in Medieval and Renaissance Studies from University College London and a Bachelor of Arts with honors in History from McGill University. Julia is particularly interested in rare book librarianship and manuscript studies and will be presenting her research on manuscript waste bindings at the 2015 Society for the History of Authorship, Reading, and Publishing Conference in Montreal. Please join me in welcoming Julia.
All right, so hi, my name is Julia King, and I will be presenting to you Learn All the Things, an Interdisciplinary Approach to Educating Rare Book Librarians. Rare book librarianship is a really popular specialty. A lot of students will come into library school and say that's what they want to do. But it's not quite as easy as that. When you start looking at job descriptions, it gets a bit more complicated. You find there are a lot of requirements that you need that you maybe don't necessarily have. So what I am going to be talking to you about is how we can create training programs that serve these needs and help students get on their feet to get their best careers. So originally, rare books libraries were all libraries. In the Middle Ages, universities like Oxford or Cambridge maybe had 10, 12 books that they kept in a chest. The Oxford University Library at one point was kept in something called the Chest of the Five Keys. Books were rare, and so you had to conserve them. You had to make sure that they were being managed properly. And this attitude continued up until the point where books became more ubiquitous with printing. So what ended up happening was universities had their regular book collections, and then they had their treasures. And at the turn of the 20th century, many libraries in the States especially decided that they wanted to keep these collections separate. So Harvard was the first to start this, but they would create treasure rooms, which became what we now know as special collections libraries. What this means is that with the treasure room idea, you were still being considered a keeper of the treasures. So what you did in your job as a rare book librarian was you did a lot of descriptive bibliography. You got to know your collection, and through that you were able to help your clients. So for example, Robin Alston, who is a scholar working for most of his career on a dictionary of the English language, went all over the place, libraries in the UK, in the US, and what he decided that he liked the best about his library interactions was the community of scholarly librarians. A scholarly librarian maybe isn't necessarily trained as a librarian. They have a PhD and they happen to be working in the library. And through their years of descriptive bibliography, they know their collection well enough to basically help somebody out with what they're doing. However, as we all are aware, things have changed. There is less funding for rare book libraries and all libraries in general, and the internet is here and it has changed everything. So the role of the rare book librarian has also changed. In 2009, the American Library Association and the Society of American Archivists issued a joint statement about special collections, and they asked for intellectual access for everybody. And so what this means is that a lot of collections are now focusing more on outreach and accessibility and exhibitions and that sort of a thing. Whereas at the same time, on the digital side of things, things like Google Books or EBO, Early English Books Online, have created the expectation that if there is something in the collection, you can also find it on the internet. So for our purposes, this means that job descriptions have also changed. So what you're looking for is somebody who is a scholar but also has aspects of new librarianship. So job postings will ask for people with second master's degrees or PhDs. They will want you to be doing conferences and publications and having scholarly output and speaking 8,000 languages, Latin at least, usually also French and German. And if you're in a very specialist collection, they might want you to speak the language of that collection also. On top of that, you need to be able to write successful grants, manage projects properly, do collections development. They usually want you to have a knowledge of archival skills, arrangement and description, have a knowledge of theory, and you need to be able to do digital preservation and digitization services. So this is completely overwhelming as a list. You look at it and you think, how am I supposed to do this? As a case study, Cornell University recently put out an application for a director of preservation services. This actually encompassed their physical rare book collection as well. They were very helpful and gave you a percentage breakdown of what they expected to see in the person taking the position. And as you see, you have 40% of the time somebody in this position will be collaborating with the larger university's digital preservation services. 30% of the time is for the physical collection. That's it. Only 30% of the time. And the remaining 30% is for in-house digitization and digital preservation. So that's 70% of the time on digital things. That's a lot of, everything that you're doing. So if you are coming in to this position only having taken, book history or analytic bibliography courses, you won't be a viable candidate for this position, basically. This is what rare books pedagogy has been pretty much through the 20th century, is making people take courses on book history and analytic bibliography. So in 1972, Ann Bowden did a study of libraries across North America asking if they had a training program for rare book librarians, and if they did, what they recommended students take. Almost all of them said that they required book history. Further along, not quite as many said analytic bibliography, and then people sprinkled here and there saying maybe you would do conservation, maybe you would do some sort of specialized cataloging. But that's it, and a lot of universities will still say that this is all you need to give your students. Speaking from personal experience, when I went to go see an advisor at one point, I was told, oh, you should take book history. And I said, well, yes, I'm doing that, so what should I do next? Well, you might want to do some research and find out what job descriptions want. So that's why I'm here. So instead, what I propose is that we do an interdisciplinary approach to rare books librarianship, taking in not only traditional librarianship with cataloging, book history, reference services, but also a healthy amount of archival theory and practice. As you can see, conservation and digital preservation are key, but also arrangement and description, other things like that. A lot of library programs do separate out their library and archive streams, but if you are aware at the beginning that you can kind of meld them, I would if I were you. It will be useful to you to have the advanced skill set. On the other hand, you have some professional development. Project management is something that people look for all the time. You can integrate that into your program. Outreach and advocacy and work experience, whether it's through a practicum or working on campus. The more you have, the better, honestly. So you should be looking at that in developing a program as well. And then on top of that, practical skills. So foreign languages, exhibit curation, and web design. Now, when will you have time to do all of this? You could do this by setting out a specific pathway for your students at the beginning. You could say, if you're interested in rare books librarianship, here's a stream that we recommend that you do. Carefully, because I have planned this for myself, it is possible in 2 years to hit almost every single one of these things with a course. What you could also do, which is what a lot of universities are doing with law degrees, is do a combined degree. The University of Toronto, for example, offers a combined JD-MI, so a law degree and a Master of Information degree. You could do that with an MA for somebody who's interested in rare books librarianship. That would allow you to use the MA to get the second MA that people want, do the foreign language training and the specialized scholarly work, and then on the MI side, devote your time to doing the combination of these two, librarianship and archival practice. It would be something to consider. So we are now pretty much at the end of my talk, but I just want to close by saying that basically at this point, library collections are pretty homogeneous. We have the same journals, we have the same collections if you're a large central university library. So what makes you truly unique are your rare books and your special collections. So it isn't necessarily a dying sector to go into. It could be, in some areas, a really growing sector. So if you are somebody who is interested in rare books librarianship, it's doable. You have to work really hard, but it is possible to get all of the skills that people are requiring and put yourself on the best foot forward. And if you're a university, you can definitely get your students headed in the right direction. And then in the end, we can all basically look at pretty books and show them to people, which is what we wanted to do in the first place, right? So thank you very much.